I thought my friends were nuts when they started this. I'm like, you're gonna play an impact sport? You're like in your 30s. What are you thinking?
There was just something about it that was like, God, these girls are so badass. I think I could do this. I want to do it.
All these like legitimate sports that I've played in the past, I could never achieve that in these sort of traditional sports. And then I find this sort of renegade sport. And when I turned 40 when I started playing, and that's the sport where it's that self-actualization. Like, this is what I've always wanted.
I was going through a really bad time in my life, and I've got this whole support network of these really great, strong, just awesome women. And they make me want to be better.
It's very addictive, it's very empowering. You put on those skates and knocking skinny girls down is wonderful.
Like, I can't even stop coming, even with my injuries. Like, I still come to practice because I don't want to be separated from them. I mean, they're like another family.
All the little girls that come up and look at you like you're a celebrity and want your autograph, and they want you to draw on their arm, and they want to take pictures with you. It's the sweetest and most humbling thing.
Some people, like when they move to a new town, they go to a church or something to meet a community. I think I would probably go to a roller derby league and be like, these are my people,
Roller derby to me is roller skating meets hockey meets rugby meets theater.
Imagine an all-girl mosh pit with girls in short skirts and fishnets, and then put them on roller skates.
I think that's the best way to put it, because you have a little bit of everything. You've got the contact sport, you've got the speed, and you've got the theatrics. Trying to define derby is like trying to define a cloud. It's like, it's a business, it's a sport, it's an adventure, it's a little bit on the extreme side, it's progressive. It's whatever you want it to be, and that's what makes derby the best thing that's out there.
We are skater owned and operated. We all own the league, so we're all part business owners. So we're all, you have 40 women owning one business, which can be a little crazy, but it's also very invested in the business end of it. So we all have an equal investment to see the league continue to grow, to survive. And so we run it as a business. So we have a board of directors, we have committees, we have people who handle different ends to make sure that we're still moving forward.
I think that derby rules try to address safety first.
They limit where you can actually legally hit people and what you can legally hit them with.
The game is 2 30-minute periods, and each period is broken down into a jam. A jam can last 2 minutes or until the lead jammer calls the jam, and both teams have their blockers on the track. Each team is given 4 blockers, so there's a total of 8 skaters that start up in front, and they are responsible for making holes and protecting their own teammate and trying to destroy the other team. Then you have your jammers, 1 from each team, and your jammers are your point scorers. When the whistle blows, the pack starts, a second whistle blows, and then your jammers take off. So these 2 people are both racing to get through the pack. The first one who comes out without committing a foul, she's given a lead jammer status. So both jammers are going to continue to race around the track and try to get back to that pack and enter again. The second time they enter the pack, they are eligible to score. And a score is simply you earn a point if you legally pass an opposing player. And at the end of that jam, a score is produced. And then it's just the accumulation of each one of those jams that adds to the final score of the game.
Roller derby is very different from other sports because we're constantly playing offense and defense at the same time. Other sports, you have an offense team or a defense team, or you have very distinct times that you move into offense and defense.
Once again, folks, these teams are playing offense and defense at the same time. On the left,
you don't really have an object like a ball that determines when you're on offense or defense. You have this thing, this person, a jammer that you're trying to like bowl, get through.
If my jammer's going through, trying to get her through, I'm on offense. But as soon as she's through, I have to immediately, within a nanosecond, switch to defense to make sure the opposing jammer doesn't get through. And sometimes you're doing both immediately. So you're constantly having to think, am I offense, defense? Where's my jammer? Where's their jammer? What am I doing now? Where are my teammates? Where are their teammates? I mean, take out their blockers so my jammer can get through, all that.
I feel like with basketball and football and baseball, like there's kind of a rule book that goes with it. There's styles of play, and there's actual plays that you execute while you're on the field or on the court. We have people in our league who've been playing organized sports their entire lives and have come to Derby and are like, I have no clue what is going on. Like, how do you play this game? How do we write plays for this? A jam happens in 2 minutes. Like, it moves so fast. Like, how do you call out and execute successful strategies?
So in Derby, it's this entire culture. It's not just you're going and playing a sport. You have to almost learn like a new language. You have to learn all the different hand signals. You have to learn girls' nicknames, not just their street names. You have to learn their Derby names and their numbers, because everybody's just going to be calling out randomness, and you have to be able to respond.
There's this massive, massive Derby index, like thousands of names at this point. They only register one name. So if you go to register your name, anybody who's like close to your name, you actually have to get permission from them to use the name.
I really wanted to be Reign of Terror. I mean, how awesome is that? I even have this head that I kind of demolished, and I wanted to carry it around as my victims that I beheaded during the Reign of Terror. However, there was this girl in Texas who was a veteran, and so she kind of had seniority over the name. And I wrote to her, and I wrote to her league, and she put the kibosh on it. So I had to go tear it to bits, which I'm okay with, definitely, but it definitely was a little disappointment.
Since soccer is so much a part of my life and so much of what makes me me and so much of my passion, that I decided to try to go with a soccer name. So I was playing around with different names. Mia Hamm is like the most widely recognized female player. In her name, Mia Slam and Mia Hammer, they were both taken. And so I just started playing with great players. And then all of a sudden, Kaká comes to me, right? The Brazilian player Kaká. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. And the Caliente just followed, and the pun happened, but it was still the nod to this, who at the time, in 2007, was deemed the greatest player in the world. So it worked.
I started going down the road of all the mythologies. And I really like the Greek Furies. I really like that whole fate and vengeance. And I'm a social worker, so that kind of fell into place that way.
My name was actually going to be Nurse Nightmare because I'm a nurse, but I get called nurse at work all the time, and I didn't want that. A friend of mine's 10-year-old son, we had gone to the truck stop, and those little spicy sausages called Tijuana Mamas, he was like, hey, this would be kind of a cool skater name. I'm like, that would be a cool skater name, because I could do a whole leader of a Mexican prison gang kind of persona to go with it. So it worked out really well, but I am actually named after a spicy sausage.
I've been in sports all my life, and for 9 years I played rugby. And my nickname on the rugby team was Cereal. And I just had to keep it and just make it into something more alter ego-ish, serial killer, something more mean.
All the support people, the refs, volunteers are put in what's called the meat department. Being at the time when I was few vegans in Derby, I knew that my name had to be meat-based, but vegan meat-based. And so just went through a lot of different ideas of what that would look like. And then I don't think I originally came up with it. I think after several weeks of trying to figure out what my name would be, someone just came up to me and said, you should be Satan. And then it became Lord Satan from that.
Here is a game that participants love to play. And the fact it's still around is really due to the women.
I mean, Derby's kind of come and gone in some different, ventures over the years. Started back in 1920s-ish.
In the late 20s and early 30s, my father was promoting walkathons, which was a form of a dance marathon. And he took over the master lease of the Chicago Coliseum. When the walkathon ran out, he had no other event coming in. And he came up with the idea, after reading an item in the Literary Digest, that 95% of all Americans roller skate at one time or another. Basically, the first roller derby on August 13th, 1935, was one man, one woman were a team. And the object was to skate across America.
This race was supposed to be a race from the coast to coast. But he was just really skating one place, but you'd skate so many miles.
And it was very successful. And he felt he was really on to something. Then he went to the next town, and it was a complete failure. Eventually, in 1937, he took it to Coral Gables, Florida, and there created the basic rules and the basic game that in form is even skated by the roller girls today. So different rules, but basically the same game. And at that point, he was able to open several units, and the teams would travel together. Our skaters didn't come from roller rinks. They didn't come from skating background. They came because they loved the game, they learned it, and they skated.
Right now, you can't play unless you're 18. But back then, you could be a teenager and play. So they would take them 14, 15, 16, let them go.
We have kind of a local famous derby lady, and her name's Esther Parton, and she's just so cool. She's in her 80s, and you'd never guess it. I mean, she's hilarious. But she skated when she was 16 years old.
When I first started getting interested in it, it was 10 cents to get in at the Coliseum in Indianapolis. And sometimes you could even get in with bottle caps.
You know, it was definitely a Depression-created event. The percentage of unemployment was absolutely unbelievable. And this was something to do.
You got it, all your food and your travel and medical and everything. If you need anything, you know, that was all furnished.
In the form, there was, you know, health care that they couldn't even achieve on the outside.
Well, back then, people were desperate, you know, and didn't make much money, but there wasn't much money then.
By 1958, it had pretty well run its course, and he decided to shut it down. And at that time, Channel 2 in Oakland, covering the Bay Area, came on the air, and they wanted roller derby. So I called my dad, and I said, if you're not going to run it, can I? Do you have any objection? And he said, no, but I can't put any money, or I can't help you. And I never thought that's what I wanted to do. That was in my blood. But once I got into it, I always loved the game, but I loved the events, the promotion of it. And as we got on television, and as we had our videotape network, and as we were on all around America, the fact that our playoffs in San Francisco at the Cow Palace sold out, that to me was more exciting than the money that could come from it. And the skating was, you know, was really marvelous in those days.
But that started out as bank track, and bank track is the only thing we ever saw for a number of years, even up through when it kind of had its resurgence in the 70s. It was still all bank track.
It was really dramatic. There were the big flips over the poles and the big emphasized elbows and slams.
It was all just for show. It was fake wrestling and lots of hard hits, and I don't think anyone really paid attention to scoring. I don't even remember how it was scored.
You know, the stuff where you watched it and you said, yeah, this sport's kind of cool, but I can see right through it and it seems silly and it doesn't seem like a sport to me.
And then I believe it was around 2000, 2001 that Austin in Texas kind of stepped up and said, we're going to do something different.
There was a bank track, and then a group split off from that in Austin.
So that's how flat track came about. And they kind of grew from there, and then they wanted to get real rules and real, established guidelines, if you will, and that's how WIFTA came to be. WIFTA is Women's Flat Track Derby Association. It's the governing body for the sport of flat track derby. And basically WIFTA is there to try to help start up leagues. It's there to work with the rules, change rule systems. They're having to add rules. They're having to make sure that there's safety issues that are addressed.
And for whatever reason, it just spread like wildfire.
Bank track is more expensive because you actually have to do setup and tear down, and you have more injuries and stuff. Both flat track, you can go anywhere.
You can play it on concrete, it can play it indoor, it can be played outdoor. It fits in a basketball court.
And that's what we're skating today.
The idea was to make a 2-city, 4-team league. There would be 2 teams in Indianapolis and 2 teams in Bloomington.
Molly McFracture and Truly Obvious had started working with Strawberry Jam and Red Stang from Indy.
And Molly had done some traveling for work and was out west and got to see, I believe it was maybe Rat City Roller Girls, and came back and was like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. This is so cool.
We have to do this back in Bloomington, which is perfect, which is how it starts everywhere.
And so they had kind of started this crossroads that was kind of a conglomeration of folks from the Indianapolis area down to Bloomington and anywhere in between.
And by August of '06, it was just decided that it was just not working.
I think the commutes got really hard, and there were some differences of opinion of how should we do this, how should we make it work. And then they split, and they became Naptown, and we became Bleeding Heartland Roller Girls.
Molly and Truly and Dick Smack and other of these early founders of our league, I would go on a limb and say that they have a reputation for being able to come together and produce great things.
They're like, yeah, let's do this, how we're going to do it, and kind of got together trying to figure out how they could get enough people to actually try to play the sport and learn the sport.
And I think that there was a time when they had like 8 or 9 skaters, like definitely not enough people to scrimmage.
In November, we kind of had a come to Jesus meeting with can we or can we not do this. We gave ourselves until January of '07.
They were just on the tipping point where, you know what, guys, let's just try to recruit for one more time. One more, we'll put out flyers and try to get people out here.
And we went on a mad marketing spree. We put up posters everywhere.
A year before I started, somebody gave me a card that said, do you want to play roller derby? And, that's, I think, when it first got into my head.
Very few of us remember having to, drive around town to find a basketball court or a covered shelter to actually practice in. And we spent the first 6 to 9 months of the league skating outside and finding those places to skate.
Everybody was brand new, so everybody was really feeling their way into doing it. And after about a year of skating and training, started playing the first bouts.
We were winging it. We had no clue what we were doing. Every bout was a learning experience. We'd come out and go, guess we got to practice X, Y, and Z.
I mean, people know the rules and know what's happening, but everyone's very uncertain of how all this works because it was still pretty new in general, and we didn't have WIFTA status yet, and WIFTA had only been around for, I think at that point, it had only been around for maybe a year and a half.
A lot of the first season skaters, they loved the idea of the sport, but had never skated or hadn't skated in 15, 20 years. And so a lot of it was just staying on their feet. There was no talk of strategy. There was no talk of what happens next. It was just stay on your feet and try to score.
But as we went along by 2008, okay, we knew this is what you need to know how to do. These are the skills. This is what you need to know how to do. This is how you hit somebody. This is a strategy. This is offense. This is defense. And we've just kind of been able to build on that momentum and put all those things in our toolbox and know what we're doing. So now we're far more organized and competitive.
It's growing. It's growing every year. We're getting 20 new girls. Even in our disorderlies right now, we got 20 new, and there's another 3 or 4 that have started, so we're up to about 23 or 24.
This is the first year we've done the disorderlies.
And the disorderlies is kind of our new kids, our strivers.
I'm just a disorderly, which is like a roller girl in training, kind of. So I'm not technically a league member. I'm kind of this little sister of the league.
The women coming up that are like, I want to play roller derby. And then they start, and then they really want to play roller derby.
So the first thing that happens when you're interested is you kind of go and observe some practices, and that's where all the potential skaters kind of go to get basic skating skills, basic derby skills, and just learn, you know, the ins and outs of the league and of the game.
I'm having the opportunity to work with them to teach them the WIFTA skills that are necessary to play the game.
There's like this huge set of skills that you have to not master, but you have to get really good at. And once you've gotten really good at all of those, you'll be invited to skate with the league.
And then to teach them how to hit, and then ultimately get to scrimmage, and then become a league member and a team member.
My father always wanted roller derby to be perceived as a legitimate sport, and his lifetime ambition was that it should eventually be in the Olympics. And ironically, it has a better chance now, some 32 years after he died, than it ever did before.
There are now so many leagues, not only in the United States, but Canada has teams, England has teams, Paris has a league now, Australia has a league.
It's up and coming and growing, and there's a petition right out there right now to get roller derby into the 2011 X Games.
Unfortunately, the X Games just as individual sports, so to let us in, we would be the first team sport. We're pushing hard.
As it becomes more spectator friendly and people know more about it, it will follow its own course. Is it really that important to get in the Olympics? Not really. It's important that everybody who participates in it loves the time they spend in it and get it out of their life.
With derby's expansion, I think you're going to see more and more calls that, you know, this is a real sport. And there's the junior roller derby.
Fort Wayne and Indianapolis both have a junior league, and those are for like little girls. So you can have, I think they start like 9 to like 16, 17.
The junior leagues, they have the same standards, if you will, that we do. It's basically a little kids league for all intents and purposes.
So you have little girls now that are playing. And so in a couple of generations, what you're going to have then is you're going to have these junior roller girls who have been playing roller derby from like 9 or 10 years old.
As young as they're starting, I mean, if they continue playing, it's going to be phenomenal, and it's going to change the sport.
That's exciting. Coming from like having founded a league and like having to reteach myself how to skate and watching the sport grow, to know that in another 5 or 10 years, I'm going to be competing against these little girls who have grown up. That's just amazing to me.
Those kids coming up are going to make this sport something to be reckoned with in 10 years.
I don't know why it's as big as it is, and we pull girls from all different walks of life. We have hundreds of volunteers, thousands of fans, and this thing is huge. It's so much bigger than me, and I'm just awed and humbled by how much these women have put forth into dedicating themselves.
All of those really cheesy sports metaphors that you learn, like, you know, as you're growing up, those are really true. Like, I didn't want to believe that because I didn't play sports or anything when I was younger, but there's something about being part of a team and like having other people rely on you that it kind of forces you down that path, even if you don't want to be. So like, I started out thinking I'm not going to become an athlete, still very individual, not a member of a team. And all of that just goes away the more you learn to play and the more people rely on you, you rely on other people. And it really does do something to like boost my self-esteem and the way I feel about myself.
Every woman who has come to play derby has found herself or a part of herself that she didn't know that she had. It adds a confidence, a self-esteem, it changes your life. All of that is very, very present in why it's so popular and why it's growing and why it's moving.
Every day I'm a mom, I'm a wife, you know, got to take care of the house, got to do the dishes, got to, you know, the regular stuff of day-to-day living. There's nothing terribly interesting or fascinating about it. It's everyday mundania, and derby's just kind of that escape.
The roller derby fills a need for them. And I have always been supportive since the start. A lot of the former skaters hate it. That's not our roller derby. Well, it's not. But it's the game that itself that has survived.
I'm here for this, and I love it. even though it consumes your entire life. And I intend to keep skating until I can't anymore.
Derby has really allowed me to get to know people that I never would have considered giving a chance before. We sweat together, we cry together, we win together. You know, it's really awesome. Like, I've made some lasting relationships, so that's cool.
I don't know, you get to kind of be like a family. My brother was in the Army, and he said when he'd meet with some of the older soldiers, it was just like they'd been a family, you know. And that's the way it was when these older skaters come back down here. It was like family, and still is.
Brother. Oh, brother is right. Look at that hair, that skin, that mouth. And now look at that blouse. And now look at the skirt. And the socks. Thanks a lot for helping us prove a point. And you too know the value of a good appearance.